Hey guys, this is Wes Munez here. If you're a member of the UniWatch community, chances are you've recently seen others take their hats and rip up the Maker's Mark logo, specifically the New Era logo, on their hats with a seam ripper, or as other people like to call it, perform a logoectomy on their hats. I myself have done this to about a dozen of my hats so far, and I've been happy to hear that actually a lot of people have done so as well, and that it's actually created this movement of logoectomies. In fact, I've gotten some requests to actually create a video showing how I do it myself. So this is why I'm creating this video right now, is to show you all out there in the UniWatch community how I perform my logoectomies, and hopefully it'll give you some tips and pointers on how to perform yours. For full disclosure here, I am not claiming to be an expert in this area by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I just started doing this a few days ago myself. And so I just wanted to give you kind of my tips and pointers of what has worked for me personally as far as removing the New Era logo. I'm sure other people have other tips and pointers that may work better for them, and I'd like to hear those as well. But I'm just, from what I've learned over doing about a dozen hats myself, I just wanted to show you all how, again, how I perform them. Also, for full disclosure out there, my video skills are pretty amateurish, so please bear with me if there are any video or audio issues in this video. I'm going to try and do my best to make this as best as possible, but again, I'm just an amateur taking a video here, so again, please bear with me, and I hope it'll work out the best for everybody. So that being said, kind of get into what you need in order to perform this logoectomy. First things first, you'll need a seam ripper. I myself here have the UniWatch official UniWatch ripper here. Works out great. Another thing you may want to use is a set of tweezers. Sometimes the threads in the New Era logo or the Maker's Mark logo can be kind of hard to grab with your fingers, especially if you have bigger hands or bigger fingers. You may want to use some tweezers. I can kind of get away, my hands aren't the biggest, so I can kind of get away just pulling them out with my fingers, but sometimes you may need to use some tweezers, so I recommend maybe have a set on hand for that. And lastly, you really just need some painter's tape. It's sticky. Sometimes what you want to do, once you get most of it off, just use some painter tape to dap on the hat, and it'll pull the threads out pretty easy. So that's what I'd recommend as well. Other than that, that's all you really need. The most of the work is just going to be done with the seam ripper and your fingers, and it should take care of it. Also, full disclosure here, this is going to take some time. My first few hats that I did took about an hour or so per hat. Definitely a lot longer than I expected. Once I got the hang of it, I can get it down to about a half hour or so, depending on the tightness of the thread in the hat. But it's going to take some time. You definitely want to go slow though, because you still want your hat to look good without the logo. You don't want any fraying of the actual hat threads itself. So again, go slow on this. With that being said, I'm gonna shut up right now. I'm gonna show you how I get done. Actually, before I move on, one other tip that I would recommend that it worked for me. I try and work from the inside of the hat, the inside of the logo, as much as possible. I try and peel the threads on the inside of the logo as much as possible, because I found once I do it, start it that way, the thread on the outside really comes out much easier. So just what I've done, some people like to work on the outside the most. I personally have found for me that it works easiest if I do it from on the inside, because once I go back on the outside, pulling them out is going to be so much easier and frankly less of a headache. That's mainly the main pointers that I have so far. So again, now I will shut up. What I'm going to do is start performing it right now. I'll try and zoom in on the thread so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm not going to talk a whole lot, so you guys can just see how I do. Again, this hopefully it's going to take no longer than a half hour, but fingers crossed here. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. I'm gonna jump in here real quick. I've noticed on these new Era hats, the left side on the inside, cutting these threads is usually I find the easiest. They're pretty thick, so you can easily get your seam ripper in there pretty easy. It's on the opposite end, on the right side here, where the thread is a bit smaller and they're a little bit to me at least, they're a bit more tightly wound or tightly stitched, and so it's a bit more difficult getting your seam ripper in. This is definitely going to take more time getting this done. Like I said, if you saw, I got through these areas pretty quickly for the most part. It's on this end, on these edges right here, that's going to take a bit of time. They're more tightly stitched, so stay patient and just keep at it until I flip over. I'm going to try and get as much done on this side again before I flip to the other side. So back at it we go. So as you can see here, I threaded or I ripped the threads as mostly on the inside. There's still a few spots in this area on the end that I haven't gotten to yet. Things are kind of getting a bit muddy and messy in this area. I've been pulling it a little bit. What I'm going to do right now, once I get to about this point, I'm going to turn it over to the other side and start working on the outside. You'll see it's gonna, when I stick in the seam ripper on the outside thread, it's just gonna go through pretty easy, and I'm just gonna cut all the threads as much as I can and start pulling it out. So with that being said, I'm gonna turn the hat over, flip it on the outside, and start working on the outside right now. Okay, once I get to about this point in the hat, I tried to get as much, let me try and center the image, bear with me, there we go. Once I get to about this point in the hat, you know, I've gotten most of the left half, or this half of the New Era logo done. At this point, I start flipping back and forth from the inside of the hat, working the outside of the hat. I go back and forth quite frequently. That's one thing I forgot to mention earlier on in the video is you're going to be working from the inside and the outside of the hat pretty frequently, especially for me personally. Once I get to about this stage, I'm constantly flipping on the inside, working the inside, and then flipping back to the outside, working the outside. So that being said, I'm going to jump back to the inside of the hat. There's a few of these strings I'm going to start pulling from the inside and also start cutting again, since it cleaned up a bit more, start cutting the inside of these threads from the inside, and then again I'll flip back over, start working it, and keep going back and forth. So that being said, I'll go ahead and flip back over. Okay, so as you can see here, all the thread is gone. There's still a little fabric remnants. I'm gonna zoom out, and what I'm gonna use is the painter's tape, the blue painter's tape, to stick it both inside and out, get the last remaining thread so you'll see the complete piece. So just take a piece of the blue painter's tape, or any tape or any lint roller that you have lying around will work just fine. I have a bunch of painter's tape, so I'm using that. Just stick it a few times, rub it. And then do the same thing on the inside. Don't forget, because there'll still be a few strands that'll still be left on the inside. And there you have it. That's the logo Actimede Florida Marlins, throwback Florida Marlins hat. It's appropriate because obviously when the Marlins wore this cap for the short period of time, they did not have any Maker's Mark logos, at least what I'm aware of, on the cap. So this is more of a true Florida Marlins cap. And if you want to zoom in, if you look closely, you can see where the New Era logo used to be. So if you're really up close and you really examine it, of course you can see where the logo used to be. But when you're out and about and you're looking at it from afar, you really can't notice it. So, you know, like I said, that took me, what, I don't know the exact time, maybe a half hour, maybe a little bit more than a half hour. That's about average what I've noticed for myself, and removing the New Era logo. Bigger logos will take probably a lot longer. So it's all about patience and persistence. You know, the turtle always wins the race, basically. So don't try and rush it, because if you do, you'll probably fray some of the threads on the actual hat, and you don't want to do that because you don't want to ruin your hat either. So that's it for me, guys. Like I said, I appreciate you taking time out to look at my video. Oh, one last thing too. Here is all the thread that used to be on the New Era logo. So all of this used to be right there, so you can see all the thread that goes into it. But like I said, that's all it for me, guys. My name is Wes Muniz. I appreciate you guys taking time out to view my video. I am not a professional videographer by any stretch. In fact, this is my first video that I've done, so please forgive me if there's any mistakes in the video or the audio quality. But I appreciate you guys taking time out to look at this video. I hope, you know, if this has inspired anybody, that's great. But again, this is just for my personal you know, personal likeness. I just like having the logos removed off and just having the straight cap by itself. One last thing, I want to give a shout out to Paul Lucas of the UniWatch community, and also my fellow UniWatch community members who have done their own logoectomies to their hat. You know, without you guys, you would have never inspired me to do this, and I would have actually never found or never even thought of taking the New Era logos or any of the other Maker Mark logos off the hat. So I got to give a special shout out to you guys for kind of inspiring me, so to speak, on performing this. Couple other hats. This is my 13th hat that I've now done. There's a couple other hats that I have that I'm going to perform. If I do create some more videos on these other hats with some different Maker Mark logos, by all means, I'll go ahead and post it for you guys. Like I said, not looking for any praise or anything like that. I just wanted to do a little instructional video of how I perform it. If anyone else, I'd love to see anybody else's tips and recommendations on how they perform it differently, because again, I'm always trying to figure out a better way to do anything in life. So, you know, let us know, let Paul know. I'm sure at UniWatch he'll either post about it on Twitter or anything like that. So I appreciate you guys taking time out, and you know, keep on keeping on.